Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dr. Carter, thank you for joining us. I enjoyed having the opportunity to visit with you in my office.
Thank you, likewise.
And I appreciate your many years of service to our nation.
Thank you.
And your willingness to serve in this incredibly important role and at a time of great challenges, great threats, and also at a time, unfortunately, when the Defense Department faces significant challenges internally. I have for some time been critical of the Obama administration's foreign policy, that it has lacked a steady mooring and a focus on the very real national security threats facing the country. I'd like to take the opportunity to briefly discuss a few of those threats with you and get your thoughts on them. And I want to start with the threat of Iran acquiring nuclear weapons capability. In your judgment, what would be the national security implications to the United States if Iran were to acquire nuclear weapons?
Thank you, Senator. In a phrase, exceptionally grave. And that for two reasons. First of all, they might use them. But second, their having them is likely to stimulate yet others to get them. So for both those reasons, very grave.
Let's perhaps expand on each of them. What is it about the regime in Iran that poses a significant threat of their actually using nuclear weapons if they had them?
Well, if you take at face value what they say, they have the ambition to wipe off the map other states in the region, namely Israel. They have a long history of behaving in a disruptive way, of supporting terrorism, of trying to undermine other governments, of operating around the world. So I think they give abundant evidence that they're not the kind of people you want to have having nuclear weapons.
And would you agree as well that with radical religious extremism, ordinary notions of deterrence and cost-benefit analysis don't always apply?
I'm concerned that that is the case with people who are extremists of that kind, yes.
Now, Dr. Carter, you also talked about the threat of nuclear proliferation, and in particular the threat that other Middle East countries, in response to Iran acquiring nuclear weapons capability, would then feel the need themselves to acquire the same. You know, what does it tell us? For some decades, it has been a matter of pretty widespread public knowledge that the nation of Israel has nuclear weapons capability. And yet, throughout that time, Israel's Arab neighbors have expressed no burning desire to acquire their own nuclear weapons, apparently because they don't perceive any meaningful threat that Israel would use those weapons in an offensive manner. And yet, the Arab neighbors of Iran are reacting qualitatively different to the prospect of Khomeini and the mullahs acquiring nuclear weapons. They are saying almost without exception, if Iran acquires those weapons, they would immediately need to get their own. What does that say about the judgment of Saudi Arabia and other countries in the region about the magnitude of the threat posed by Iran?
I think it tends to reinforce what we were just saying, namely the prospect of Iran having a nuclear weapon is a pretty fearful matter, and you don't have to be just an American or an Israeli to get that idea.
So would you then agree that the consequences of getting these negotiations wrong that are ongoing, or the consequences of these negotiations facilitating and allowing Iran to acquire nuclear weapons capability, would be severe, both from the perspective of the Middle East and our allies, but also from the perspective of our own national security?
Yeah, the negotiations have precisely the opposite objective.
Let me ask you also briefly about ISIS. How would you characterize our objective right now with regards to ISIS?
To inflict a lasting defeat upon ISIS. I only add the word lasting to reinforce the idea that once they're beaten, they need to stay beaten, which means you need to create the conditions, in this case, Iraq and Syria, so that they stay defeated.
Okay. And a final question. In your professional judgment, what would be required militarily to destroy, or as you put it, inflict a lasting defeat on ISIS?
Militarily, it would be the dismantlement of their forces and their networks. And to get to the point about lastingly, there's a political ingredient of this, which I need to add, which is to have them replaced in Iraq and in Syria with a government that the people want to be part of, and so they don't have to be governed by maniacs and terrorists.
Thank you, Dr. Carter. My time has expired.
Senator Blumenthal.